Hello, my name is Themi. You must be Louisa.
Hi, Themi. Yes, it's Louisa.
Nice to meet you, Louisa.
Very nice to meet you as well.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
That's good.
Before we get started today on the interview, would you like a glass of water, a cup of coffee, or anything?
No, but thank you for asking.
No worries. And Louisa, we were discussing before about the consent form. Have you managed to send that through?
Oh, yeah, I signed it and I sent it through to your email, so it should be on there.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Mhm.
And I know the consent form said that I'll be recording today, but I'm just double checking. Is that okay if I record?
Yeah, that's completely fine. I understand.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll press play on the device now. Beep. So, Louisa, going to our first question, can you please tell me what interested you in partaking in this interview today?
I think what interested me in taking part in this interview today was the topic. I thought it was very interesting. I think it's a very controversial topic of conversation at the moment, and I think that it's very important that marriage equality is explored further. So I thought that I would help you guys out, put my opinion forward, and I just thought that because it's something that needs to be explored further, that I would help out with it. So yeah, that's why I chose to participate.
Interesting. Moving on to the follow-up question,
Mm-hmm.
Can you please tell me what your attitudes and beliefs are surrounding marriage equality?
I think my attitudes surrounding marriage equality are, well, I don't think, I know that they are pretty positive. I think that acceptance is really important amongst people. I think people need to learn how to accept each other, accept people who are different. Everybody's going to be different. Not everybody's going to be the same, I think. And just because someone is different, they shouldn't be able to be dictated, like told what to do just because they're different. I think that it should be allowed. Difference should be embraced. It should be a good thing. But yeah, I just think that marriage equality is something that needs to be seen, I think, in a positive light. Like, I know people have different opinions, but that's just the way I see it. I think that marriage equality, we are in a 21st century now, and I think it's something we need to move forward and accept and just move on with life.
Okay. Moving on to our next question, Louisa.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please tell me how do you think Australian university students perceive the topic of marriage equality?
Well, I think that university students, I think that they perceive marriage equality in different ways. Obviously, depending on upbringing and other different influences on the student, I think that they'll have different opinions. From what I've experienced positive and negative. I've seen some people to be very for it, very just because, you know, like people should have their human rights, like everybody should have their privileges. But then I've also seen some people who are just very, very traditional, very uncomfortable with the idea, don't want to hear about it, don't want to know about it, all those kinds of things. I think, okay, yes, everybody is allowed to have their own opinion, but I think sometimes people are a little bit tunnel visioned on it. They don't see the bigger picture, but also there are other people who do accept it, and I've seen a range and variety amongst university students when it's come into conversation.
Interesting. Moving on to our next question now, Louisa.
Yep.
Can you please tell me why do you think past generations had different values and beliefs on marriage equality?
I think that in past generations, society has obviously changed and developed since in past generations. I think that things were more limited, more restricted, more conservative, and from what I've heard, from what I've heard from my family members back in those times, it was more black and white, right and wrong, tunnel vision. Like there was not as much of the acceptance of people who are different, not just with marriage equality, but with other things, other issues as well back then. There was definitely that big part of society where if you weren't one of them, you were different and you were ostracized and you were discriminated. And I think that in past generations, because obviously it is considered to be different, but difference back then was considered negative versus now it's obviously something that is more accepted, more embraced, not by everyone, but by a lot of people. So I think in past generations, it has been different because of that value that different people are different, and stay away, kind of. Like they were very segregated from everyone else. So I think that that's why they probably would have had very different beliefs to what are current now, like the beliefs now. So that's probably one of the main influences.
Interesting. So, Louisa, how do you think your values would compare if you were in the 1960s or even the 1950s to modern day views?
I think, well, the views if I lived back in the 1950s would be very different to now, because obviously we do live in a modern society. If I was brought up with different values, I was brought up in a different environment, I would have had different influences on my opinion. My influences now, where I was brought up always embracing acceptance, difference, all those kind of things. Back in those days, I might not have been brought up with those same attitudes or those same values, so perhaps I would have had different views. I would have been more against it, or I would have been more uncomfortable with it. And I think that that's why I would have a very different view back then as to say now.
So, Louisa, moving on to our final question. Is that all good with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Time?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. How do you see marriage equality shifting in the future?
Changing,
Yes.
Okay. I see it in a way that, now we have the acceptance, we definitely do, but not perhaps as much as it should be. I think in the future, in my personal opinion, I think it'll probably come to a point where it's most likely legalised, because it will be one of those things that people will realise once the newness of it has, because it's quite a new kind of, not a new topic, but it's something that's quite recent. I think that it will be something that just changes. People acknowledge the idea, accept it, understand it more. People probably get over it, as rude as that sounds, but they'll probably just register that it's actually not that big a deal. It is human right, and I think that will be one of the changes in the future. People will become more accepting of it, and I think that I think it'll be like now, but there'll be less people unaccepting of it and more people accepting of it. So I just think it will take a little bit of time, but it will probably be one of those things that people will look back and go, oh, that was so silly that we weren't allowed to do that. But I don't know, I might be completely wrong, but that's just my opinion. I think it might be one of those things that is almost frowned upon today. Not frowned upon, but there are some people that still frown upon it. I think it'll be one of those things that just changes, like there have been in the past. A lot of things like this have happened in the past and have changed now, and we look back at it and go, oh, that was silly. I think it'll be one of those things now, but that's just completely my personal opinion. It might be completely off, but that's just how I see it.
So, Louisa, moving on to a follow-up question.
Yeah.
How different do you think the change will be from today's time?
Well, I think it would be quite different because obviously now, even though there is that acceptance, it still has a little way to go for it to actually be fully accepted. So it would be a big change. It would be majority of people, if it was to be accepted, it would be majority more people accepting it. So I think it would be a pretty significant change, and I think that it'd be less like xenophobia, like the fear of people who are different, and I think it will just be, not saying it's like really, really, it wouldn't be like, it's not as bad now as it was back in other generations, but it still does have that, a lot of people are very against it still, so I think that will change and it will be a big difference.
Interesting. That will be all for today. Thank you, Louisa. We've covered through all the questions, but before I end the interview, I would like to recap and summarise of what we talked about.
Yep.
So our first point we talked about was your interest in the study for today.
Yep.
Then the second point was your beliefs and attitudes towards the study. Oh, sorry, not towards the study, towards marriage equality.
Yep.
Third point was how your peers understand marriage equality.
Yep.
And fourth point was how past generations view marriage equality. And the final recap was how we see marriage equality to be shifting for future purposes. But, so you're all good, you don't need to recap or talk about anything else for today?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in today, Louisa.
Mhm.
Hope to see you next time.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Have a
See
good
ya.
day. Bye-bye.
You too.